are here with me today. Okay. So Leslie Ehm is the former TV host and advertising creative director turned training guru. She spent decades traveling the globe with her award-winning company Combustion, working with executives and teams from top organizations like Google, Disney, PepsiCo. List goes on. She's turned technologists into creative forcers, bankers into storytellers, and has brought a serious dose of badassness to boardrooms everywhere. She now devotes much of her time working as a swagger coach and speaker. Leslie has been called better than therapy, a rock star, ass kicking, a force of nature, and even a witch, all to which I can completely attest to. Leslie, I am so happy to have you here with me today.
This is like a this is like a cupcake with chocolate sprinkles and some of those nice, those minty chocolate buttons and all of the delicious treats that I could possibly have for the day. So thank you.
Okay, so you and I met on LinkedIn. And somebody that I know posted or made a comment on one of your posts, which was an excerpt from your upcoming book, Swagger. And so I just looked at it and it hit me like a freaking ton of bricks. I'm like, what? And this was a caption. I'm like, what have I just read? So I wrote to you. And we started talking. And you gave me a couple chapters of your first book because I knew within 2 seconds that I wanted to interview for this podcast. And so to prepare me for this, you gave me a couple of the first chapters. And on the first page, I just knew that this book is going to change the world. So tell us, define for us, Miss Swagger, what is swagger?
Well, when people hear the word swagger, they tend to think of that arrogant, show offy, peacock, strutty, typically male, that behavior that is not terribly attractive, but a lot of people think that it is, but it really isn't.
Right.
And that has a lot of negative connotations. That is not my definition of swagger, trust and believe. The way that I define swagger is the ability to manifest who you really are and hold on to it in the face of all of that psychological crap that's going to come for it, regardless of situation or environment. So it means that you really know who you are and you walk around with one face, one heart, one truth, no matter who you're dealing with or no matter how difficult it might be. That is swagger.
And I think that's terrifying for a lot of people because a lot of people do, especially boardroom people, they have their business persona and then they have their go out for a drink with their buddy persona. And they just aren't the same person. And it's really hard to want to spend time with somebody who's not their true self.
Yeah, I mean, what blows my mind is that everybody hates it in everybody else, but then people behave like that.
Right.
But those are not the people that we gravitate
Mhm.
to. So let's say we are someone who is stuck in the false persona, fake it till you make it, all of that crap. When we look at the people in our professional lives who are charismatic, who are easy in their own skin, who have empathy and vulnerability and compassion, and who are open, and what you see is what you get, those are the people that we admire. Those are the people we want to be like. And we're trapped in this prison of our own making, of all of this crap that we've told ourselves somehow is what we need to do to succeed. And I've seen this in countless humans. I'm telling you, Lindsay, I have traveled the globe and it doesn't matter the country, the culture, the company. People do not believe that they can be who they really are and still find the success that they're dreaming of because they don't believe that who they are is good enough. And it's bull. Can I say shit?
Yes.
It's bullshit. And it's like we all see it,
Mhm.
but only the brave can choose to have swagger because it does take courage. It will require you to take risks, but the payoff is so exponential. It is so worth it that once you have swagger, you ain't never going back.
Right.
That's the reality.
Yeah. It's like one of those things, once you've tasted what it actually feels like to speak and be and live and root,
Mhm.
you just not going back.
And when you see how people react to you, that's the
Mhm.
crazy thing is that we imagine that people are going to react so badly that somehow who we really are is so unpalatable. It's so unlovable. It's so unacceptable
Mhm.
that we can't imagine actually showing people that we're flawed and messy and human and imperfectly perfect.
Mhm.
And yet we have science to back up the fact that that's the thing that creates connection between humans. That's the thing that is going to allow us to unleash all of our power so that we can achieve everything that we want. So it's this self-fulfilling prophecy. If you hold yourself back, if you hold all the big juicy parts of yourself back,
Mhm.
then how the hell are you going to achieve the big juicy things that you want to in this life? It's just not, it doesn't make logical sense. But it's the story that we tell ourselves over and over and over again. And I am here to create a new narrative for the people because the people need to start telling themselves a different story because they have 100% power to do that.
Mhm.
No one can force a narrative on you. You choose.
Okay. So who benefits from owning their swagger?
Well, everybody.
Uh-huh.
Everybody. I mean, let's break it down. So, the individual human who discovers their swagger, they now are in a place where they are no longer doing the fake it till you make it thing. They understand that when they get validation and appreciation and accolades, it is the real them
Mhm.
that's getting it. So they can feel their bad selves huge. It is them who can share their ideas more freely, take more risks to benefit the collective, be a greater contributor to their business environments. It is them who walks around every day knowing that they have not been censored or silenced, that they have spoken their truth, again, to benefit not just themselves, but benefit the collective. Now let's flip that around and look at the leaders of those people in a business environment. You now have someone on your team who is unleashed. They're sharing their best ideas. They're being in service of that collective. They have compassion, they have empathy, they have more acceptance for other people. They feel better about themselves. They've lost all that robotic shit. So now they're a better team member because they're more open. They become someone who other people gravitate towards. And for you, that person becomes a powerhouse. They will become your next leaders. I promise you that. When you're looking around and saying, who do I think is going to be the next great leader in my on my team? That's the person who's going to shine because everybody is going to be gravitating towards them. That's what happens. You become a better parent because you feel better about yourself, and you remember that swagger is as much, if not more, about self acceptance than it is about self assuredness. We're all going to get shaky. Shit happens, life happens. We will get shook.
Mhm.
But if we accept ourselves, we can accept that we get shook because we're perfectly imperfect to begin with.
Mhm.
This is a great thing to model for our kids, that we do not have to be perfect, that we do not have to put on a false front, that we can express ourselves freely and we can be loved for who we really are. Think about if you can instill that in your kids by modeling it, how much better equipped they will be to go into the world with their own swagger. Everybody wins. Everybody.
I love what you say about fake it till you make it doesn't work. Elaborate on that.
All right. So here's the thing about fake it till you make it. Once you walk around pretending that they're all that in a bag of chips, as they say in the UK, you are now stuck with that. If you're faking it, but you're pretending that you know everything, you can now not go and ask people for help. You cannot learn and grow because you already told everybody that you already know it. So you literally get paralyzed by that. And there's all kinds of studies that have been done over the years to reinforce this. One of them is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And what they found was that people who walked around pretending that they knew more than they did very quickly lost the ability to make good decisions because they weren't informed decisions by definition, right? They were fake it till you make it decisions. Plus, over time, they started to smoke their own crack, as it were, and started to believe that they were actually smarter and better than they were, which led to arrogance and which led to lack of humility
Mhm.
and also ignorance. So just like a recipe for disaster. Instead of the fake it till you make it, I want you to think about this. The only way that you can get confidence, which is what you're trying to fake anyway, the only way to get true confidence is through competence. Only by developing your competence will you develop that beautiful thing of, I got this. Okay. You're going to have to prove over and over again to yourself that you know how to do something. And then you're like, okay, you can pretty much drop me anywhere. And I'm going to have a baseline of knowing how to do this. That is what we're aspiring to. So instead of focusing on confidence, focus on competence. Now, the thing that we need in our swagger journey is not confidence per se, because that'll come. That'll come as we develop and grow. What we do need is self-belief, which is very different, because self-belief is not about competence. Self-belief is that unerring, unflinching, unshakable sense that you can jump off the cliff and you're not going to die. You know, you might bounce, you might hit a few branches on the way down, you might get a bruise, worse, but you might fly, you might float. A lot of things could happen, but you're not going to die. Because in that confidence competence model, every time you stretch yourself, every time you go out of your comfort zone, your confidence by definition is going to be shaken because you're back to a place of the unknowns. You're back to a place of learning and growing and having to figure it out. If you have self-belief, you'll have the strength to go on that journey to get to that legit confidence. So they are two very separate things. And I say to people, just give yourself over to this notion of self-belief that I am not going to die. And I say to people, say to yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Something I love also about what you say is what swagger is not.
It's not being perfect or having a shiny persona. It's not
Being an asshole.
about being an asshole in any way,
No.
shape, or form. Like you cannot run down the hall with your hair on fire in your underpants screaming, I must speak my truth, and expect it to go down well. It is not going to go down well. So it is not, you can't just, I remember years ago when, when in Brene Brown's work, for example, and a lot of other people who were talking about authenticity, and authenticity got a really bad rap because people said authenticity is just an excuse to be an asshole and to not have to apologize for it. What if you're authentically an asshole? So I feel like, well, bad things are going to happen if you're authentically, you're going to get what you deserve. Like that's how it's going to play out. That's not what I'm talking about here. Because at the core of swagger, the swagger, key swagger drivers are truth, intention, and self-belief. Okay. So speaking your truth is absolutely critical, but you can't just speak your truth like this unfiltered, uncensored, asshole. That's not appropriate in anything. It's disrespectful to the other. So you have to think about, if you want your truth to land, if you want it to be heard, you got to get smart about how you frame it. You got to ask yourself, okay, is right now the best time to speak that truth? Is it the right place to speak that truth? Is it going to be heard the best in this way? Because I want my truth to be heard. And is my truth in service of the right things, which leads us to intention. You got to ask yourself, why is this so important to say? Why is it important to speak my truth? And if it's only to better yourself, it's probably not going to go so well. There has to be an angle of it that serves the greater good or the collective. Because what is good for you can also be good for the collective and vice versa. So you got to know, why is it so it's so important that I express these things right now, and what will be limited and what will not happen if I don't speak my truth. What value does my truth bring, not just to me, but to the world? And that intention is going to give you the courage, and it's also going to make sure you don't go into asshole territory. Because if your intention is to up yourself so somebody else looks bad, or if it's to bring somebody else down, or if it's to take attention away from somebody else, or if it's to take credit for something, if it's to be a show off, or all of those other things, it's not going to go well. It's not. That's not swaggerlicious right there. So truth, intention, and the aforementioned self-belief, those are the key drivers.
What does swagger look like in the boardroom, what does swagger look like in leadership?
So a leader with swagger is someone that, first of all, is very comfortable talking about everything that they don't know. They are willing to say, I don't have all the answers. I've got some answers, and here's how I'm going to go and get the answers for you. But they don't pretend to know more than they actually do. A swagger leader listens to their people, incredibly important, and creates an environment of psychological safety where people can share their truth in a respectful way, where they are heard and they are acknowledged and they are validated for being so much more than perfect, corporate robots. That their humanity is important, that their flaws are important, that their uniqueness is important, and that when they're not at their best, they get loved and respected through that and supported, and who also models what they want other people to be doing, and they encourage their people to do the same. Imagine a world like that, where your leader had the strength and the courage and the vulnerability to operate with swagger. Wouldn't that be a place that everybody would want to work?
It seems to me like swagger and vulnerability really are going parallel to each other.
Well, vulnerability is a key element. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time talking about vulnerability per se in the book, but the thing is that when you show the world who you really are, you expose yourself to hurt.
Mhm.
Because if somebody doesn't like who you really are, that hurts like a bitch. If you're pretending to be someone or something that you're not, and people say that they don't like you, you secretly know that it's not the real you that they're rejecting. That the real you is hidden behind it. Like, you can't get to me because I'm back here somewhere. That's how I keep myself safe.
Mhm.
But I look at this as a two-way pipe. If nothing can get in, nothing can get out. And the real you remains trapped deep inside. And you're stuck behind all of those swagger blockers. So at the end of the day, the final, the final result of you bringing the real you out into the world is, yeah, you are going to be exposed.
Mhm.
For sure, for sure, for sure. But you're also going to be so powerful that it's so worth it. It's so worth it.
Like in those 4 chapters that you gave me, like I took so many notes. Because it
Can't
was
wait for you to read the rest of the book. I
I
can't
know,
wait.
I'm so excited. And I have to say, after I read, I don't want to say anything. Say,
Like, we don't want
but
to ruin it for people.
well, no, just in the sense that after I read, like, so when I read the first page, I was like, what has just happened? And then I read the first chapter, and I had planned my day, so I'd read the first chapter and then go about my day because I had other things. I just screw it. I canceled what else was happening, and I just read through it as much as I can, and then there were no more pages. I'm like, oh my god, what do I need to
I'm
do?
torturing you. I gotta just give you the book. Okay.
So, but after I read chapter 3, I was so ignited to get out there and continue with what I had going on for the rest of my day. Like, I was so pumped. And what I love about this book is that, yeah, it's kind of like a how-to book, and you have a companion workbook that goes along with that. But it's just like, you can't, as a reader and somebody who hasn't written the book, so I don't have your experience, but I have my lived experience through the first 4 chapters, is that it really is a very quick study on how, with very specific examples that are totally relatable, that I can see, like, it's written so clearly that I can actually see what it is that you're talking about, that it's so empowering. I'm like, I can do that. I can do that. I understand what she's saying. And so
Yes.
the way that you've written the book is just, it's so accessible. And I swear to God, I felt like a rocket after reading the third chapter. After the third chapter. And I just, I'm like, there's like
Well,
12 chapters. So one of the things, there's so many things that I loved. Uh, I actually, this is true. You talk about the flawed badass. I printed that and had it blown up and I put it up on my studio wall. So tell us about the flawed badass.
well, that's it. I mean, a part of it is just that you know. Remember when I said, that swagger is more about self acceptance than it is about self assuredness. And when you acknowledge that you are a flawed badass, and then people criticize you for being flawed, you're like, I know, right? I know, right? Isn't it awesome? Like it is the best psychological defense that you could
Yeah.
ever have. You know, my mother, when I was a teenager, and I mean, at 14 years old, I'm going to date myself now, but I was 14 years old, and I was into the whole punk new wave scene. It was the beginning of the punk new wave scene, and I'm like this Jewish suburban girl from Montreal, and nobody looked like me. I had like a mohawk with purple going through it. People would stare at me on the street, and I was pretty much back then what I am today. So I was a lot of human. I was a lot of human. And I was not getting a lot of the Jewish suburban boy action, as you can imagine. I mean, they would run screaming for me. And so it was heartbreaking. And I remember coming to my mother one day and saying, I just, maybe I should pretend that I'm like one of the regular girls, and maybe I should like change my look so that someone will like me. She was like, absolutely not. She said, Leslie, if you pretend to be someone that you're not, in order to get someone to like you, at some point they're going to figure out who you really are. And then if they reject you, that's going to hurt. But if you show up exactly as you are from the jump and they don't like it, who cares?
Yeah.
No harm, nor no foul. And she said, and get this is the best. She said, besides, if a guy is too dumb to recognize what an amazing girl you are, what would you want to go with such a dumb guy for anyway? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's just take that little piece of advice and extrapolate it out to, if that company is too dumb to recognize what an amazing asset you are, what would you want to work for such a dumb company for? If that boss is too dumb to recognize what your contribution is on an authentic basis, what would you want to work for such a dumb boss for? And so on and so on and so on. Mm-hmm. So it's about accepting everything that you are, because none of us have it all going on. Not one of us. I am a beautiful, hot mess. I'm like the most gorgeous stew of stuff. And every time you stir me, new chunks come to the surface, right? Some mouthful is going to be meaty, some is going to be saucy, some maybe a little more. Like it's a crazy analogy, but it is. And also some people will not like my stew. They just won't like the flavor. Does that make it bad stew? No, it does not. You just got to find your eaters. You got to, yeah. Right?
Yeah.
You got to find your people, your tribe, and you've got to let them know what it is you're asking them to accept. You're saying, accept me for who I am. And then you get me, all of me. And that's a gift. I'm a gift. And I want to give all of myself. You don't give someone a gift of box of chocolates and take 15 pieces out just in case they don't like the cherry centers and the caramel and the thing. No, you give them the whole box and you let them decide.
Yeah. And I find that there's a lot, there's so much value in putting your shit out there. Like this is
about it, girl.
What's that?
The power of putting it out there.
Yes.
You know the benefits of doing that.
And it is so freeing. Like, yep. As soon as I put on LinkedIn that I had this problem with alcohol, it was like the slowest motion of my life, pressing the post button on that.
Post, yeah.
But then as soon as I did it, it was like,
yeah.
It was one of the most liberating experience of my life. And people can call me whatever they want, and it just has no negative effect. Gone.
When you think about the amount of energy, if you could bottle it, the amount of energy that you expend worrying about how other people perceive you, like en masse, how other people perceive you, the amount of energy. Imagine what you could accomplish if you could bottle that for yourself and use it for good instead.
And the other part about it is that it is our perception of what their perception is. And so it is so far removed from what's actually going on. It's bullshit.
It's total bullshit.
It's a waste of time.
Listen, for authors, we go through this beautiful ritual, this crazy ritual of when your books arrive, you get your first shipment of books, you make an unboxing video. So it's what is that real moment of what it's like for an author after the years of struggle and the writing and everything to hold the book in your hand. So a couple of weeks ago, The boxes arrived. I said to my husband, Russ, the boxes are here. Get the camera. I was wearing this big baggy shirt. I have no makeup on. I've got like my pants are rolled up. I'm in like, my COVID gear. Like, get the thing. And he like grabs the camera and I open the box and pull out the book. And it takes me 3 seconds before I'm ugly crying. And it was 100% authentic reaction. I'm reading the acknowledgement, one dedication to my husband, one to my mother who'd passed away. I'm like fully in the moment of like just exalted joy and like poignancy, and it was bittersweet, and it was such a full circle moment for me. And then I went, okay, it's over now. And then I took it and I went, post. I did not edit it. I did not fix it. I did not caption it. I did not think about it. I went to post. Lindsay, within like minutes, it had 500 views, 1,000 views, 3,000 views, 5,000 views, 10,000 views, 17,000 views, and counting. And the amount of love and excitement and emotion that I got from thousands of strangers who reacted to this video, because it was on LinkedIn. I didn't even post it on freaking YouTube. This was just on LinkedIn. People were saying that they were feeling it, that they were crying with me, they were excited for me. They don't know me from shit. But because I was just me, being me, doing me, it affected people, it impacted them, it moved them, they connected to it. They could feel their own joy in my joy. They could feel all of those things. I mean, what more proof do we need in this life? You just
And that's the effect that you have on people when you're just opening a box. Right? And so to echo what you've just said, get the book. Right? So Leslie, we have to wrap up, but where can we find the book? When is it available? Give us the deets.
Okay, well, it's officially available for pre-order now. The launch date is May 10th. You can get it at all booksellers all around the world. Swagger, unleash everything you are and become everything that you want. And you can join the Swagger Collective, which is my little insider, love posse. You can do that off swaggerthebook.com, leslieem.com. And the Swagger Collective is just my people, my tribe, and you get little presents and little stories and little things that I send you. There's really no commitment whatsoever. You can also take your own little proof of swagger assessment. You go to Swagger, I think it's leslieem.com/swagger test.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure that you'll have it in the show notes just in case. So you could just see where you are on the swagger scale right now. And you could follow me on all the socials and cry with me, because it's got a lot more crying to come. So on LinkedIn, I'm at Leslie M. I'm at Leslie M Speaks on Instagram, at Leslie M Speaks on Facebook, and at Leslie M on Twitter. And I'm you know me, I'm posting all the time. It's all about love and excerpts and quotes and things and swagger tips and stories and all that craziness, because I'm so profoundly in my place of purpose. And this is my mandate, is to unleash as much swagger on the entire planet as I can, because I think the world would be a far, far better place.
Last swagger tip.
I'm going to give people a little challenge. Okay. A little challenge for the next week. After hearing this, I want you to confess your mess to someone. Find someone that you have been withholding your true self from, and tell them something that is true and messy about you. Something you don't know, something you're feeling, something you haven't been able to do, something you're not able to do. Just confess your mess and see what happens. A little swagger experiment for you.
Leslie, you are a shining star. I am so grateful that you came into my world. You certainly spread a little swagger pixie dust in 4 chapters. And I'm just so thrilled for your book. I just know it's going to change the world.
Thank you so much. You know what? You have been a gift to me as well. I think you came into my life at like the most perfect time, and I fell in love with you few seconds as well. So it's a love, it's a whole swagger love thing. You know? Swagger, no swagger when it sees it. So
I just cannot wait. This book is the bomb. Thank you for your
thank you.
time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay.